Hello and welcome to today's EES event. This is a spotlight within our wider theme of Visualising Egypt, which will be exploring the diversity and complexity of Egyptian art, as well as how it has inspired contemporary artists. So do check out our website for other upcoming events within this theme, running until June of this year, or catch up with our spotlight lectures, which will be available on YouTube. So this one will be uploaded later on. But I am excited to introduce today's Tuesday Spotlight, Amarna, City of the Sun God, an exhibition recreating a dream. So especially for those of you unable to visit the exhibition at the Glyptotek in Copenhagen in person, this will be an exciting event for you. So Tina Bag will be sharing the inspiration behind the exhibition focused on Amarna and how they have brought both the city and its inhabitants to life. So Tina Bag has worked at the NY Carlsberg Glyptotek since 2009 and became curator for the Egyptian collection in 2015. She is also chair of the Danish Egyptological Society, who I heard visited London just this week, and of the CIPG, the Committee for Egyptian Collections within ICOM, the International Community of Museums. So I am delighted to pass over to you, Tina. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited for this lecture, as I'm sure all of our audience are as well. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really delighted to tell you about this exhibition that, as you heard, is started on the 26th of January and it's running for some months, so you still have time to come and visit. But I will try to tell you what is behind the exhibition, how the idea came about, and how we have processed this idea to show Amarna, City of the Sun God. First of all, we actually did have an Amarna exhibition in 2005 here at the museum. So why make another one could ask. But in 2005, it was an art exhibition. It was the objects that we have here in the museum that were displayed in a beautiful way. And just one floor of the exhibition building. And this show that we have put together this time is a much broader view of Amarna the place, and not as much the Amarna art as such. First of all, what I really wanted to do with this exhibition was to set the scene for this amazing period, very short in Egypt's history, around 1350 BC, where Akhenaten and Nefertiti decided to make a brand new city in the middle of Egypt, at the site that we today call Amarna, or some people also say Tel El Amarna. They themselves called it Great Aten, the horizon of the Aten. And Aten was, of course, as you all know, the sun disk, the sun god, the one and only, who Akhenaten decided should be the one and only god, and not the god Amun, and not the other gods, Osiris and so on, as were known in Egypt. So he started in Thebes, in the southern part of Egypt, building, but soon, at least in his 5th reign year, he decided that they had to start a new city. And it was just in the middle of Egypt, between Memphis and Thebes, as you see on the map. And a very important thing for the exhibition was, as I said, to set the scene. So in May last year, I went to Egypt. I went to Amarna with the photographer Janne Klerk to take photos from Amarna to be able to show this amazing site where you have the cliffs back from the Nile, almost like an amphitheater, a very special place where they must have sailed up and down the Nile to find this place, and eventually found a place that this new city could be built. Also, the cliffs were very good that you could make inscriptions in the cliffs, the so-called boundary stela, so you could tell the borders of this area for the sun god Aten in this new place. To make an exhibition, it always starts here in the Glyptotek. Where can we make the exhibition? I've done other exhibitions here, like the first real exhibition I did was on a Petrie project with all the Petrie finds we have in the Glyptotek. and that was under the roof in part of the old building. But now this time I should make an exhibition in the new building that was by the architect of Henning Larsen, and it's in 3 floors. So the exhibition is now in 2 floors, in the ground floor and the first floor. And you see, it's a very good way of seeing the building from here, because here you almost see the rays of the Aten, the rays of the sun, at least when the sun is shining, as it doesn't do all the time in Copenhagen, but still you can see it this way. And it was a very good idea to have the exhibition in this building. As I said, it's 2 floors, and it's divided into some rooms. In the ground floor, we have 5 rooms, and in the first floor, there are in a way only 2 rooms, but we made it in a way into 3 rooms by a dividing wall. And I'll just very shortly tell you how we, let me see, you come in here to the introduction room, as there are no objects in the first room, but you are introduced to the exhibition and to the period, to Amarna, to the place. And then you enter to this first big room where Amarna is founded, and you are presented for the Aten and Akhenaten and all the beginning of founding a place like Amarna. Then we proceed to the workmen's village and the more common people in this room to see who lived in Amarna, not just the people in the big villages, villas and the big palaces, of course, but also workmen who built Amarna, very importantly. And then we proceed to the central city with all the administration and the great temple for the god Aten. The next room here is, we go further south to the place called Maru that does no longer exist. But we have some finds from Maru in the Glyptotek that I wanted to recreate in this room. Then you have to go out and up the stairs. You come up to the first floor, and another place where we have finds at the Glyptotek is the North Palace. And this has, and you see that here is, we built up a wall, and in one part of the room we have the North Palace, but the other part is mainly for the tombs, because now we are ending the story about Amarna with the Akhenaten dying and the other tombs in Amarna. And the very last room is then leaving Amarna and also celebrating the 100 years of finding the tomb of Tutankhamun. So you can go down the other way, as you see here. But first, I had an idea that the first room should not be empty like it is now. I actually wanted to move this wonderful sculpture of the god Anubis that we have in the Glyptotek. I wanted to show what happened in Thebes when it all started, when all the names of where the god Amun was mentioned, like in the royal names of Amenhotep, like the father of Akhenaten, who himself, as you all know probably, that he was also named Amenhotep at the beginning. But the names of Amenhotep were erased in this way, like on this sculpture of Anubis. But there were problems with this. It was too heavy to have in the new building. And also there was a wish not to cluster the first room so much. Better have it as a more introduction room and not so many objects in the first room. So Anubis is still in the permanent display and not in the exhibition. Normally we have these finds from Amarna on display at the Glyptotek. We have finds from the Egypt Exploration Society's excavations in the 1920s. And we also have some finds that were bought in the art market. But these are the smaller objects that we can have in the vitrines, as you see here. And we actually have more objects in the storeroom that are not normally on display. But we do have the Amarna royalty on display. We have Akhenaten himself with this head from the garden of the priest Panexi in Amarna. You see how it was destroyed in antiquity, how when they didn't want the Amarna period and its royalty anymore, they like almost cut his head and the lower part of the head is missing, and even his nose and eyes are hacked. But we have also an Amarna princess, and we even have Nefertiti in this small faience bowl, or not bowl, I mean, of course, it's a sphere. It's around like a big bead, where we have Nefertiti with her flat crown that we know from the bust in Berlin, of course, but that's a very small object, so we don't have a big Nefertiti as such. But then in the storeroom, we do have objects again from the excavations of the Egypt Exploration Society, where we have these two wonderful floor paintings from the Maru Aten, where they were together with other similar plant motifs around some T-shaped basins or water pools, where the top part is the two we have in the Glyptotek. They were originally together, but now they are, as you saw, in two separate mountings. We also have parts of a column in Maru Aten, 4 parts actually, from one of the columns in the back part of the Maru Aten complex, where they are also decorated with papyrus plants. It's very typical for Amarna that it's all what the Aten gives life to, that you have the plant motifs on the floors, on the walls, on the columns, and wherever you could show what the Aten has, all the fertile land that Aten was given life to. I wanted to sort of rebuild this column, so a special rack was built, as you see here. Normally we sometimes had only the bigger part on display, but and also in some publications it's only the bigger part that is on the photograph. But I wanted to show all 4 parts in the way that they were originally part of a column. So they were placed like this, and it ended up in this way. My original idea was also actually to have the colored reconstructions of the plants. I would have loved to have them 1-to-1 and then have them on the floor, or just a bit raised from the floor, and then place our 2 pieces on the top in the way they should be. But space did not permit that, so they ended up like this, like in half size more or less, and then the 2 floor fragments in front of it, and the column next to it. So here you are presented for the Maru Aten as an example. When we are by paintings, we also have from the North Palace, we have these 2 fragments from the so-called Green Room in the North Palace, also very much, very beautiful, and showing the fertile land along the Nile. But they were mounted, as you see, in 1 frame here, even though they were from 2 different parts of the walls. So I wanted to have them separated, and also not so thick frame as they were. Actually here my first plan was to have the wall painting, the drawing by by this that you see on the wall. I wanted to have ours mounted on the wall where they belonged, but again this was too dangerous. They were fragile, as you see. They are painted on plaster, of course, and mud, so we couldn't have them like that. Again, I had to make do with a smaller version and then have the 2 wall fragments in front of it. But then, even though we have these nice finds in the Glyptotek, I also wanted to have some loans to supplement and to tell the real story about the site of Amarna. So, for example, we have this fine talatat that is now as a relief, but it was originally a block with the second wife of Akhenaten, the one called Kia, who was reworked into the princess. You see how the back of the head was made into a princess head with these long elongated skulls. So some years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, Ray Johnson from Chicago House and from Chicago, he discovered that another piece, another talatat that is in the Metropolitan Museum in New York, It actually joins the one we have in Copenhagen, where Akhenaten is offering a dog to the Aten. And the part that we see in the Glyptotek, this one, that we didn't really know what it was, maybe a hand, maybe an offering, we didn't know. It turned out it was the neck of a second dog that Kia is holding up to Akhenaten as a second offering. And in a way, we have the whole offering scene in this way. So that was very important to join these two in the exhibition. Was a big wish from me. So that's why I went to New York in January 2020 to secure that we could have this loan, so we could finally join these pieces again. They were separated when Ramses II, he tore down the temples and palaces of Amarna and reused them in Hermopolis on the other side of the Nile. So it was since the time of Ramses II, they had not been together, these two blocks. But we succeeded in Copenhagen to put them together, as you see here. But other places I wanted to have loans from was very close to us, the National Museum of Denmark. They have very good finds also from the EES, from the Workmen's Village. And they have the old excavations of Flinders Petrie from the glass workshop and other small finds. So it was very good that we could borrow from our National Museum. Also from the Royal Cast collection here in Copenhagen, they had a copy or facsimile of Nefertiti and some of the princess heads. So from the abroad, also not just the Metropolitan Museum, but also from the Louvre and from the two museums in Berlin, the Ägyptisches Museum and also the Near Eastern or Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin, we got some loans. But yeah, back to Akhenaten and Kia, you see this drawing by Ray Johnson, where they are together. Of course, when we have the hands of the Aten, we can also have the sun disk. And in a way, this one relief that we had with Kia is suddenly a complete wall, a complete scene, and we know what is going on. Kia is now offering together with Akhenaten in the way that we normally see Nefertiti. But of course, she's not receiving life from the Aten as Akhenaten is and as Nefertiti normally is. She's participating in this offering ritual, but she's not given the sign of Ankh from the Aten. But when I had this one loan from the Metropolitan Museum, of course, it's better also to get more loans, as they have a fantastic collection. So I was very happy that it was possible to have another Talatat of Kia, where you clearly see that she was also reworked into a princess, and also some parts of Akhenaten, the body of him, and also an unfinished face of Akhenaten, and a princess body, and also a mouse, since the Akhenaten head we have is without the lower part. From the National Museum, as I told you, they have finds from the Workmen's Village, like the broom, and they have finds from also the glass production, as you see, and some faience objects like the Bes figurines or amulets. Very important. I want to show that a small god like Bes is still very much in favor of the people in Amarna. He's on very many places in Amarna. Some of these amulets are found. Many people, when they see the exhibition and see the broom and they see the basket and so on, they say, are they really old? Are they really from Amarna? They could be from just yesterday, from Egypt or from some other place where you are still using these kind of materials and these kind of objects. But this makes it very, I think, very close to you and very close to living people, that you still had these kind of objects also some 1,000 years ago. But then I, of course, also wanted to represent Nefertiti, and with the loans from Berlin, I didn't ask for Nefertiti. I knew, of course, that she doesn't go on loan. But then we were lucky that at least there's a plaster cast of her at our Royal Cast collection in Copenhagen. And then they also had the other heads that could represent the workshop of Thutmose, where Nefertiti was found. And then it was not possible to borrow some of the plaster masks that they have in Berlin. They can't travel, they are too fragile. But I was very happy that it was possible to have these two figures on loan, where you could see the unfinished figures or small sculptures, which also gives a good impression of the work of Thutmose and the workshop of a sculpture. And here you have the final of these two figures and the cupboard, as you can call it, with the plaster heads. So the workshop of Thutmose. But also other finds of other loans from Berlin. I wanted another Akhenaten with a blue crown, like the small figurine from Berlin. And this more primitive stele, where we have Akhenaten and Nefertiti, also not finished with their names in cartouches, but still also showing the royal couple. And some other good finds also we were able to get from Berlin. One of them were these horse bits, and also from the Near Eastern Museum, some 3 Amarna letters, which was also important to show the diplomacy in Amarna and foreign relations. And for the horses, they are also mentioned in one of the letters here, so the horse bits. And then many places in the exhibition, we use these drawings of the tomb reliefs, very clear to see how the Egyptians saw their world in a way, and this way that Akhenaten and Nefertiti were on a horse carriage on the royal road through Amarna, and the people running next to it, making it a big show when he was visiting the Aten temples in Amarna. Another place we got loans from was from the Louvre. We got this wonderful Nefertiti body and the beautiful tiles with the calf and the papyrus landscape. And then I was very happy that we could have this lower part of a stele with Nefertiti sitting on the lap of Akhenaten, playing with their daughters here, because in Copenhagen we have this corner of a stele. Of course, it's not the same stele, but still it's from the excavations of the Egypt Exploration Society, and we have the 3 cartouches of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and of the Aten. So of course the motive below this corner was something similar to this one that we had on loan from the Louvre. And here you have, I could at least have a photograph of the Nefertiti bust next to the body, and next to the other side we have the workshop of Thutmose. But you see, we had a little problem of having our vitrines for the exhibition. Actually, it was supposed to open last year in October, but we couldn't get the materials, and we couldn't get the vitrines. There were always problems, as there still are, to get materials. But we postponed it till January and got these fine vitrines from Berlin, and they can even be reused. You see, they are glass walls that you can take apart, and then you can store them and use them for other exhibitions. Previously, we always built our own vitrines, and actually we never had space to store them, so they were always destroyed afterwards, which was a very shame. So now we have these wonderful vitrines that can be reused for other exhibitions as well. We made these drawings of how to display or how to distribute the finds in one of these vitrines, so we could have them in the real scale and see how they would be together and how much could be in each of the vitrines. This is the work you do before you get the objects. And then you have to choose the colors on the walls. We had the graphic designers, Rasmus Koch Studio, that had very good idea that every room should have another color, but they were all these kind of earth colors, brown colors, reddish brown colors, a bit yellowish colors that you see on the walls of the exhibition today. And then I had a real dream of having the son of the Aten with the rays, with the hands, and then a big photograph of one of the colossal statues from Karnak, that they have this one in the Cairo Museum. Of course, we didn't have that on loan, but we have a big photograph of it, and he's standing under the rays of the Aten. It was my wish, but it was not till we had an opening Wednesday night, and then the real opening on Thursday. And this picture is from Tuesday evening, so just before the opening of the exhibition. They succeeded in putting these arms in the right positions. They had to use a string here in the middle of the Aten disc, and then so they would be exactly as they should be down here. And the graphic designers also wanted to make other rays, just in a more graphic way, and they wanted to have the pictures on the walls, so to put on these rays in a way of the way they should hang on the wall. But when we had some meetings, we were thinking that these rays were actually, they were too many. That would be too much of a mess in a way. And they were also, I also had another idea that you can see here how they look more like maybe some spears or something coming down through the pictures when they are different lengths here. I asked them to make them that they all start from the same, at least maybe in a little rounded way, so we could imagine the sun up here, so they would more resemble sun rays, and also they shouldn't be as many as was first thought from the graphic designers. But this is the way it ended. You can see it here in the back. And not all of the graphics have them, but they are in some of the places, and they are all in a way, so you can imagine they are some kind of sun rays. This is the first big room where you have the head of Akhenaten and the figure of Akhenaten from Berlin. And we also have the stele and the corner of the stele over here. And this you can't see, but it's actually a small wall painting like the ones they have in the top of the walls in the big villas. So we have this illustration here to show how it was on the wall originally. But the first room is one of my favorites, even though there are no objects, as you see here. We also have had a light designer, Mas Vegas, who designed the lights, so it should come from certain places as if they came from the sun. And you see how there's light on the sun disk here and on the rays in this way here. I think it works very well. And then with Akhenaten standing here under the rays of the Aten. And in the first room, we also have the map, and we have the photographs from the scene or the site of Amarna with the cliffs in the background, and where Amarna was built down here by the Nile. And then we have the 3D reconstructions by Paul Doherty. They are also featuring in the exhibition, both here in the first room and also with a short video that I will return to in a minute. Another thing that should make Amarna talk, so to speak, was the Great Aten hymn that was reinterpreted by a Danish poet and writer, Harald Workmen, who made it in Danish here, and also, of course, translated into English here, next to the graphics of where it was in the Tomb of I in Amarna, both in photograph and also here in the drawing of the hieroglyphs. So Harald Workmen really wanted to show the hymn here in a way so it resembled the hieroglyph columns. So he decided that in Danish, every line should be 35 letters and spaces, and not one or less or more. So every time I had a small correction for him, he had to change a lot but he took it in a nice way, and it ended up as you see here. We also had to make this kind of when we had to divide it, so they were on the same length first when we put it up, where we have these parts of the text. It was not on the same base down here, but it looks much better when you have it really like this. You can see that it does in a way resemble the hieroglyphs text. And then to make it all come alive, as I said, we have the 3D reconstructions by Paul Doherty, also the small video that is also online, where you arrive to Amarna here at the Great Palace, and then you enter the Great Aten Temple, kind of fly through or over the temple and back again. And in this way, you get a feeling of the site and the city of Amarna in another way that makes it more alive. I'm very happy that we could use this by Paul Doherty. Here you have the video on a screen, and you can sit here. Also the publication, you can read in that. You can take a rest sitting here if you have been through the exhibition. You are almost by the end when you are here on this side of the wall that we built in the big room upstairs. Up here you can also smell Amarna in a way, at least incense. We have here two different ways of smelling the incense. Katrine Andersen, who is working on how to make also Amarna come more alive. She did this. And then I displayed this part from the National Museum. It's actually a blue painted lid that has been reused, maybe as an incense burner. I think so, since when you turn it around, it's completely black inside. And you have also illustrations from the tomb walls in Amarna, where you see the burning incense on top of the pile of offerings. So this could very well have been used in this way. Then the very last room, as I said, we wanted to celebrate the 100 years of Tutankhamun, especially when the exhibition was supposed to be in October, just before the real anniversary in November. But still, of course, it can also work as that, even though we opened in January. We borrowed a replica of the throne of Tutankhamun from the National Museum, and we have this Amun head with the face of Tutankhamun that belongs here in the Glyptotek. And then I also wanted to show here where Eye is opening the mouth of Tutankhamun from the tomb wall of Tutankhamun, so we could tell the story about what happened after Amarna. We also have this reused base of Maya, the treasurer of Tutankhamun, with his name and titles here around the base. And we have some reliefs from a tomb in Saqqara, also from the post-Amarna period. So this was the last room when you have been through Amarna, from the founding of Amarna, and from this room we call the abandonment of Amarna, leaving of Amarna. So you come all the way around through the various parts of Amarna, the various people of Amarna, the royalty, and also the more common people. The whole story is told, and then you can leave the exhibition. And from the opening on the 26th of January, I've never seen that as many people as we saw here in the winter garden of the Glyptotek. There was a queue to come in to see the exhibition, and you see you couldn't move from one part of the winter garden to another. I met a lot of people afterwards, some days afterwards. They said they were there, but I never saw them, because when you were in one part, you couldn't see who were in the other parts. So that was really amazing how big interest it has generated, this exhibition. But then, of course, we also published a book, a kind of small catalog, where in the last part of this, we have all the objects that are in the exhibition. And then in the book itself, we have articles by Barry Kemp about Great Aten Temple, by Anna Hodgkinson. I saw she was at this lecture today. Hi, Anna. She wrote about, of course, the glass and also the faience production in Amarna that she has worked with. And then we have Anna Stevens about and Gretchen Dabbs about the tombs of Amarna, where we have the more common tombs. Very important to know how these people worked very hard in Amarna to build Amarna, of course. Otherwise, it would never have been possible to build Amarna. But it had a price, of course, that the people worked too hard and died. Many of them died very young. This story we also want to tell also in the show. So, and many more articles are in the book, also by the late Lisa Manneke, who has written about smell and music and all her specialities in the Amarna period. So I'm happy that that could be included also in this book. So this is the last of what I wanted to tell you about the exhibition now, and there will be some time to also, if you have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, for such an insight into the exhibition. I think it will be a really useful talk for both those who can't attend in person, but also those interested in the behind the scenes of museum exhibitions. I found it very interesting seeing all your choices and how an exhibition is so much more than the objects themselves, although bringing some of those blocks together is quite a magical moment, I can imagine, from different museums. So
yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, I can see why you put so much emphasis on going to the Met in January, just before the pandemic. I should tilt my screen a little bit, and you can just see up here the EES, our replica of the unfinished Nefertiti bust, which you can see
yes.
the original in the Cairo Museum.
Yes.
But if you can't get to the Cairo Museum or Copenhagen, do visit us at the EES here in London, and visit our lending library in the Learning Hub to see some objects. So you have a few different options there.
Yes.
I will end this event by thanking you once again, Tina, for such a wonderful lecture. I think it was a real interesting look at a wonderful exhibition. Thank you so much for showing it to us virtually today, and also those behind the scenes moments and those highlights from the exhibition from your perspective. So thank you so much. As you can see running down the chat, lots of people are also saying how brilliant it was to hear more about the new exhibition, which of course is open until when this year?
18th of June, and I hope that many of you will be able to come and see it. That will be even better.
Yes, if you can, please do visit and learn even more about Amarna in person. So thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully see you at another EES event soon. As I always mention, these events are only made possible through the support of our members. So do check out our website to learn more about becoming a member and supporting Egyptian cultural heritage even more. But for today, thank you very much for joining us, and see you all soon. Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.